just that, is talking about how we're always busy, but what's going to happen now with the new influx of business coming in, it's kind of like working out. You can work out and just have an average workout. And in the exact same time frame, if you've got 30 minutes to get a workout, you can just kind of go through the motions and you feel like, all right, there's better than no workout at all. Or you can go in there and go, screw it, man. No rest, or maybe only 20-second rest in between sets. Just go, 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 push hard. Maybe you get more reps in, a better workout, same time frame. So we can all do more with the exact same time that we're given. And that's what we're all going to have to do coming up here, basically today moving forward.
All right, we're ready to roll. Let's go.
With Q4 coming up, and in all of 2025, if anybody has financially struggled in the last 12 to 18 months and isn't prepared to sock every fucking penny away that they can over the next 18 months, they're a fool in their money and they deserve what they get.
Well, okay.
French terminology.
Let's I want to come back to that. But I was frustrated with something before you jumped on.
With me?
Of all, no. First of all, let me just say, when I woke up this morning and looked at my calendar and remembered that I had my friend Chris Sorensen on the podcast today, I thought today's going to be a good day. Today's going to be a good day. So let's just start there. But now let's fast forward, because you were comparing, a workout as an example to the way you do other things in life. And I was actually going to start this off by saying, hey, Chris, do you think that sometimes just doing something is better than doing nothing? Or can we also argue that sometimes doing something can be worse than doing nothing? And let me give you an example. So we're going to have a great conversation. There's going to be value in this, I have no doubt. But I have spent no time doing anything to enhance the production of this quote podcast. As you can see by the glare on this ridiculous picture that nobody knows what it is because you can never see it, and the fact that I'm using a Logitech camera that was designed to go on the top of a monitor like 8 years ago, I think to myself, here, I'm the guy that will stand in front of a group of people and talk about working on your business and not just in your business. Yet here I am not doing anything to enhance the production of this said podcast.
You know what? If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And so while you know exactly what to do, the fact that you have not written it down and calendared it with specific activities that must occur for the quality to improve, it's not going to happen. It'll be something that'll just be a thorn in your side forevermore. There might be some time where you just happen to be walking by a store and you see something, you have an epiphany and say, oh, that's right, I got to buy that. But absent something of that, we're all guilty. I'm guilty, right? So as my dad said, if it ain't in writing, it doesn't exist.
So what you're saying is the LinkedIn post that I did this week where I went on a rant about people not setting actions in their business development effort is exactly the problem I'm having when it comes to this ridiculous glare on such a cool print that nobody will ever see what it actually is because the lighting is screwing it up. I hear you. Thank you. I'll take that advice. I'll stick it in Model Match right now and set a task for my camera and my lighting.
Well, and we all have to look in the mirror I think on a daily basis to remind ourselves of what we need to get accomplished. Because how many times have people like you and I that have been in business for a long time, we hear something and we go, that's not new, but I needed to hear that now.
Oh, 100. And not only is it not new, it's generally not rocket science. It's just something you're not it's the keep it simple method, right? That we're forgetting the easy things that can make the biggest difference. Okay, now let's back up. You said something about the next 18 months and the need for people to start socking away money. I have a friend who did this podcast 2+ years ago, while everybody was making money during low rate environment and the pandemic. But he said basically the same thing that you did, but sort of different timing and a different way. All this money that you've been making, I hope you've put it away, because it's about to change. And a couple of things are going to happen. Number one, you need to protect yourself. But number two, if you really view yourself as a leader, a business owner, which many originators, that is what you are. I mean, if you're good at what you do, you're sort of owning and operating your own business, you're commission only, you're making investments. His point was we're going to be in a buy low moment, even for loan officers to pick up market share. And then here you are saying it on the back end of what has been a really difficult market. If I'm an LO, though, or a producing manager or a non-producing manager, or any of us that have been, fighting and scratching and clawing, what about fighting the urge to just simply make up for all this lost income? Meaning, I'm not really going to save it. I'm now paying off all of the things I've fallen behind on.
Well, okay. Point of
And I don't
clarity.
just, by the way, I don't just mean in debt. I also mean in things like all the tools and resources I haven't been investing in. And now I've got this urge to go spend all that money and invest in it. Maybe talk about things like that a little bit.
All right, okay, so look, all of us should view ourselves as the CEO of a publicly traded Fortune 100 corporation and then act as if. When a dollar comes in and you're a professional CEO, that dollar is already accounted for. Every single dollar has a certain percentage that is geared towards going towards something. R&D, marketing, you know, cash on hand for opportunities, etc. And so when real estate agents or loan officers receive a nice commission check, they do the commission dance, right? Which is a wrong thing to do. That's the reason why they suffer the highs and the lows that 90% of the industry does, because they don't act as if they are a true business owner. So your point is well made. You know, what percentage you put aside for, vendor tools and understanding how those vendor tools can actually help enhance your business and scale your business is something to be discussed. And, one can take a deeper dive on that. And for each individual, it might be slightly different.
Sure.
There'll be generalities, but it could be slightly different for each individual. So I think to do that topic justice, we'd want to take a deeper dive. But the same thing goes for marketing as well. But most importantly, where my mind is, and perhaps maybe it's just my stage of life, but I was always told by my dad, and I didn't understand it until later on in life, when he said, always pay yourself first.
Yeah.
Now, look, let's just look at this on a macro level. My CEO has always made sure that he paid himself and his company first. And that's the reason why we can weather any storm. Our runway is, no runway is forever. But well, every company out there that was in the mortgage space was losing money at some point over the last 2.5 years. Now that things have turned around and we're making money, obviously, as an industry, I mean, we're in the catbird seat. There's a lot of companies that did not have themselves in a sustainable position. And that's just unfortunate. It's sad, because what it did is it allowed those people who put their trust and faith in those organizations for their career to have to move multiple times in many instances. Just unfortunate, right? Coming from a guy who's had 3 jobs in 36 years, it appeals to me to be with somebody who actually has longevity and lives both on their personal and professional lives in a way that appeals to me, which is paying yourself first and, count on your own money for a rainy day instead of somebody else's. But yeah, if not to be overly verbose, but I'll just say this, Eric, when the market was great, some of us put money into real estate because money was, in essence, free. So take that money, buy real estate, and continue to ride the wave. For 92% of Americans, that's where their wealth is going to be created. And I think it's like some crazy number, like 88% of the world's wealth is created in real estate. So pretty good investment overall. Now, if you can take the money, if you did accumulate any type of debt, by the way, take that money that you're going to earn and make sure that you pay that debt down. That's the same thing as a savings account. I just believe that this is going to be a great wave coming up. It's sad because because anytime you have a recession, there's people who are going to be underemployed or unemployed, and that's unfortunate. But the byproduct of that is the Feds overreact. They're going to have to lower rates, right? Since 1913, they've been creating a boom bust cycle that's nonstop. And so here we are again. We're going to have, for our business, a boom cycle for our refinances. And I've got to tell you, I'm looking forward to making sure that I sock to my wife. I said, I know we've got a few homes that we bought here in the last few years. I want to pay those off. Just get rid of the debt, right? And just be done with it. And yeah, I'm hoping that there'll be at least one person on this podcast that'll listen to me.
Well, I hope so, and I think so also. I mean, it's funny how history repeats itself. Like we think we should have learned from the last cycle, but as an industry or as a group of people, we generally tend to not learn. But there will people that will. You know, you got me thinking of something that you and I talked about because I think it relates to what you just said. When fear enters a person's mind and heart and emotion, it's easy to make bad decisions. We've all been there. We've all done it. You've done it. I've done it. I'll probably do it again at some point. Hopefully I have good mentors and friends like yourself where I could pick up the phone and say, Chris, I'm thinking about doing this. And you're going to say, absolutely not. You're an idiot. And this is why you're an idiot at the moment. But when those things happen, you know, bad decisions can happen. We look for short-term solutions. You and I talked about this a week or so ago, and then you had a LinkedIn post about 3 or 4 days ago. And that LinkedIn post talked about people becoming indentured servants,
Oh yeah.
essentially. And I think you know the post that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And this is something that, you know, I don't think this is going away. I think it'll ebb and flow as the markets ebb and flow. But talk to me a little bit about those people who end up with a little bit of pain probably, and then see solutions to that pain being, you know, guarantees, sign-ons, and things that maybe haven't been fully thought out in how that math actually works. Talk a little bit about that for a second.
So, and look, it's very easy for somebody if you're, you know, I'm in production, right? So if you're in production and you hear me say what I'm about to say, you could very easily dismiss it and say, well, that's just Chris because maybe his CEO doesn't give him the latitude to write big checks to my business. Say like, you know, like if I'm working for CCW or cross CCM, cross country mortgage, and I'm a recruiter, I probably have a lot of leadway to write checks to recruit talent. At least that's the opinion on the street, right? There's certain companies that are just known for stroking big checks to buy production. And I listen, I don't wish anybody any ill will. I hope it works out for them. I'll just say this. I can't tell you how many conversations I and our team have had, our regional managers have had over the last year plus, specifically in the last, you know, year and a half, 2 years, of people coming to us saying, hey, can you buy me out of my agreement with fill in the blank? And they'll tell us what they received based on the production that they're doing, or even what they said that they were doing. And I'm scratching my head going, how does that even pencil? And the only way, Eric, this is my fear, the only way that it pencils is if you will jack with the person's rates. If they don't deliver the volume that they promised and more, well, then the only option is to raise their rates, raise their margins, so the corporate is making more money on each funded loan. Well, you could say, well, Chris, that's bait and switch. And they told me that wouldn't happen. Okay, well, if you are hearing me, then please do this. If you're considering taking money, it is so silly for you not to call at least 4 or 5 of that company's branches who have been with that company for at least 7, 8, 9 months and ask them over the last 8 months, has your pricing modified? From the beginning to where it is today? Has it modified? Has it gone up? Is what you're really asking. You're talking about making a career decision. So if you're not willing to invest a day or two in research, well, then you're fooling your money. And when I use the expression indentured servant, I mean, obviously that's been done away with in America for a long time. But if you look up the definition, that's what you're doing. You're taking money today in exchange for work for tomorrow. So you're promising that company, hey, I'll stay with you for the next year, 2 or 3. And if you read these agreements, they're very one-sided. And you're stuck there. Now, remember, let's make it easy math. You take a $100,000 check. What's your net check? 55 grand? Okay. But if they raise your pricing and you go, but that slick talking regional manager, area manager said that wouldn't happen. They're not in charge. Okay. And everybody can claim ignorance until you sit down and talk to the person in charge of capital markets who's behind the scenes pulling the purse strings on that particular cost center, and they're making moves. And the regional manager maybe sincerely is just ignorant. They're like, they would never do that. Well, they did.
Right.
You can easily see the math difference. So if you're going to take money and you receive a $55,000 check, the gross is 100, you receive 55. If they jack with your pricing, you got to stroke a check back for 100. Or you come to people like me and saying, hey, Chris, will you stroke me a check for 100 so I can pay off my old company so I can come to your company?
Right.
And, look, I don't want to be a hypocrite. As I said in my post, have there been times when we've done some variation? We've done some things that are out of our comfort zone, of course. How often have they worked out? Not a whole lot. The people who are the most successful, at least at PRMG, are the ones who said, look, just pay me more in basis points for a period of time. I'd rather bet on myself and make more. Now that's appealing to me as a director, right? If somebody says, I'm so confident in my capabilities, I want you to pay me X number of dollars. I want $100,000 because this is how good I am. And I look at it and say, well, do you want 100 or would you rather have 150? Well, I'll take the 150. Okay. Well, then bet on yourself and I'll pay you an accelerated comp for a period of time until you reach $150,000. Oh, well, I don't
So
want to do that.
let's
But then they go, I want the check up front. And I kid
right.
you not, Eric, they go, I want the
Right.
check up front. I'm like, well, what you're telling me is you want me to bet on you, but you're not willing to bet on yourself. That's a pretty scary proposition.
Well, you also lose leverage. I mean, but yeah, I could play devil's advocate on both sides of this equation. You know I can, right? And
Yeah.
and I can play devil's advocate without believing what I'm actually saying, but I can debate it for
That's
sure.
that's a
But
talent.
well, and it's the talent comes from listening to people for 20 years and listening to how they're
Yeah.
dealing with problems and how they think that they're justifying the solutions that actually aren't solutions in the long term. Everything really boils down to motivation. And at the end of the day, is how are you motivated? And you bring up such a great point that doesn't come up enough in this conversation, and that is your motivation as the originator is to solve a short-term problem. You made a mistake and now you're asking for somebody else to bail you out of that mistake. Just be honest about it. It's okay. Somebody might be okay bailing you out of that mistake if we can get the terms
Fair
right
enough.
and the risk reward works both ways. Okay, but let's keep going on motivation. So that's your motivation. Unbolt me from this problem and make it so I don't have to go home and tell my spouse that I have to cut a check for $50,000 to make a change. I mean, that's going to be a difficult conversation to have. Okay, that's my motivation. The hiring manager's motivation is that I see volume coming in to my P&L that I don't currently have. And that volume means something to me. And maybe selfishly, that motivation is going to help me make more money. So there is a selfish motivation there as well, that if we don't do the due diligence and do a full audit, we have to start questioning that motivation. But I got another one for you. And you brought it up, and man, I'm so glad you did. And that's capital markets. What's their motivation? Their motivation is to protect the organization, the entire organization, relative to the math and the equation that works for this company. They don't really care about the fact that you just took 100 grand and there's a clawback provision. Okay, so I'm going on a tangent, but then this leads to other things. What if I'm the LO doing 25 million in a market? I never took a clawback. I'm just doing the right things. But all these clawbacks, don't they eventually affect me also? Because the company has to be healthy, and capital markets is going to do something a little more globally potentially that could affect me. Maybe we don't make the investment in that next tech platform that could help me out. Maybe we don't add a little more human capacity that could support me on the operational side. I mean, it all relates, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously, and again, from a macro perspective, if you've taken on as a company, if you've taken on all this production, and again, this is a kind of a worst case scenario, but some of this is very real. At least what I'm hearing from some of my peers at other organizations who have said, yeah, we've got a little bit of a problem with respect to bleeding red ink on our P&Ls. Now, granted, this refi upcoming boom is
Going to
going to
help a little
save a lot
bit.
of
Yeah,
people's bacon. Yeah,
sure.
but there's a lot of companies out there where the vast majority of their individual cost centers or branches are in the red. And that does weigh on a company, especially if you've taken sub debt in order to be able to accommodate that growth. You're right. the capital markets team has to obviously make sure that the company remains healthy. And if that means spreading the pain over a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot of folks, they'll spread the pain over a little bit over the people who took no clawback, and they'll spread more pain on the people who are locked in because they can't go anywhere. And they know that most people, sadly, they don't have their FU money. And so they live at or above their means, just like their borrowers do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason why sometimes these signing bonuses are so critical to them. They want the money now. It's not just their ego stroke. They want the money now to help satisfy a financial problem that they may have on a personal level. You know, if you've bought in a car you shouldn't have bought, you bought too big of a house, you don't have the savings. I mean, again, I reference my dad a lot. You know, he's long since passed in 2008, but I mean, he was my hero in a sense of he's a hardworking SOB, took no guff. He's the guy you've heard me say to my team. He's the one who said, son, there's only one person on this planet who gives a rat's ass how hard you work. That's your mother. The rest of us, including me, only care about results. And so when you're raised by somebody who's like in your face telling you that you're going to produce results or else, and you're going to pay yourself first, and you're going to have your FU money so you have options in life, yeah, it eventually sinks in and you take action on those lessons. And so, yeah, I guess, you know, one of the things that I hope occurs when I get a chance to talk to any audience is, man, if you can be like me in one way, make sure you pay yourself first, make sure you're as debt free as possible, with the exception of maybe real estate. Have some money in the bank so you have options. You're in the driver's seat. Debt is servitude. And that's why I don't like seeing people take on debt or take on money from a company who locks them into an agreement. And in exchange, you got to give 2 years. Man, if it's not Chris Sorensen and PRMG, choose a company that has to earn your fucking loyalty every single day.
I know, great point. Because if I ask for accelerated basis points, you give me accelerated basis points. We come to an agreement on what my business model is going to look like. I didn't take any money. I didn't sign a clawback provision. One of the things I love about that is as a third party connector over the years, it's very easy to say they have a vested interest in making sure that they do right by you, because you can pick up and leave. You can pick up and move that book of business somewhere else. I had a CEO say to me once, this is years ago. It was down in the Southeast. We were doing some work consulting work to help them identify opportunities and expand. And this was a IMB,
Mm-hmm.
IMB, and this person that they were trying to partner with was coming from a bank, but all their business was self-sourced. It was purchase focused. It was no lead gen. They had really done a good job of building their own book of business, right? So what was interesting to them was I could go to this IMB, make a little more money for the same amount of work, and have some tools and resources that I don't currently have. Nothing's wrong with the bank, but the bank's value prop doesn't really create a lot of value for me or my referral partners. And my customers. But what he said to me was, here's my problem. Here's why I'm not interested in taking this seriously. Since they're an IMB and not a bank, perception, not necessarily reality, you know, they could just blow up overnight. Some financial change could cause a problem for them. They don't have the assets or the hub and spoke model that allows them to lean on something else. And that's my risk. I'm not interested. Here's what the CEO said. He said, you got it backwards. If you join my company, you know what I'm going to say? You got it backwards. If you join my company because you think that we can help you grow your business because of the tools and resources we have, and we can help you make more money that you can reinvest back into yourself and into your community, then let's play this forward. 24 months from now, something happens and we blow up. We go out of business, or we're having a serious problem. Who's in a better position now? You or me? I helped you grow your business. You're doing 25% more business now. Point was, that was one of those moments where it was like the risk reward. He was able to flip it on a head, which is what you're kind of saying as well. Don't join my company if you don't think we can help you grow your business, or like what you said earlier, do the same amount of business in less time, and you decide what you do with that extra time. Give it back to nonprofits, spend time with your family, do whatever it is you want to do. But I do think that it's really easy in this business to get clouded by the shiny toy or blinded by it and not go through a full audit full due diligence. But when he said that to me, it really flipped my brain 15 years ago on, man, he's right. This person could join the company, grow their business, increase their referral source network, and then leave. The CEO and the president has more risk than the LO, and that's kind of how it should be.
Well, on that last statement, for sure, absolutely. The loan originator is the customer. If you are a broker or banker, right, you've
Right.
got to take care of them. Unless if you're a producing branch manager, maybe you can take a little bit of a laissez-faire. But even the producing branch manager is the IMB's customer. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we've got to earn their trust and loyalty every single day. It is interesting, you brought something up that I want to, if I can expand on, especially today. People have to vet out the company that they're going to join. And I think to a degree, that's why some people have been somewhat stymied. They're like, well, I'm afraid to go from company A to company B for fear that they may not be in business. We've seen so many organizations obviously have to be rolled up under somebody else or just flat went out of business because they didn't have the runway that I spoke of earlier. But that is so true regardless. I mean, we've seen regional banks that have overnight been shut down.
Right.
We've seen massive organizations backed by hedge funds that overnight just shut down. We've seen small mom and pops go bankrupt. We've seen other regional players roll up under the companies backed by a hedge fund. Find an organization, if it's privately held, I mean, it made me think about some of these publicly traded companies, like Loan Depot, others. I mean, you look at their financing, you're like, holy shit, it just looks like a train wreck from this guy's opinion. But it's so hard because as an example, we're a privately held organization. Nobody truly knows except for our CEO, his partner, and the CFO what the true finances are, right?
Right.
Maybe our capital partners or aggregators. But it falls under the little bit of the category of Nunya. You're going to have Nunya business, right? You're going to have to align yourself with an organization just based on your gut at some point and the astute questions you ask. I mean, what is the company ownership's position? What capital tier one players are they doing business with? That will tell you about their finances. What is their servicing portfolio and have they leveraged that servicing portfolio? There's a whole lot of questions people can ask to get a little bit of a feeling of, hey, this is a good company that I can call home. But if anybody has made it this far, by and large, the pig's 80% through the snake, so you're going to be in good shape, I think, wherever you land, if you feel good about the leadership. But anyway, not to ramble, but yeah, I think that it's tough to make a decision on what place you're going to call home. So if you're going to do that, make sure you ask clear, concise, direct questions, but do yourself a favor, folks. Don't just go for the cash unless you have no other choice because you've overspent. Make a company earn your trust and loyalty every single day. Bet on yourself. These are just things that I guess what I would do and what I respect that people do coming to PRMG or any other organization.
Well, and the good originators, when I say originators, I also mean managers because you're managing originators. So you're
Sure.
still, even if you're not producing, you're as close to that as you can
True.
get. Isn't that how you consult with your borrowers? Do you want short-term gain? And sometimes that's okay. Or do you want me to help you build long-term wealth? I mean, which is it? And what are your goals 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20? How you talk to somebody who's just in the process of having their first child is different than the way you talk to someone who's now an empty nester.
Yep.
But I think the industry, we still have a lot of really good producers that are good at that. And then it makes me think of the next thing. You as the originator, the branch manager, even a regional for that matter, as you move up the org chart, the Nunya thing, I don't disagree with. I also think not only is it Nunya, at some point, if you do your job, you're the one that is in control. So you mentioned Loan Depot. Shane Stanton is one of the best business development guys in this industry, and he always has been. I have a lot of respect for Shane. Loan Depot's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But,
No.
Shane would be one that could probably show you, hey, if you come here for the right reasons, we might not be a good fit for you. But if we are, I can show you how we can help you grow your business and be more efficient in your business. If we fall on that, I expect you're probably going to leave and join another company. And we just lost all of that investment in time because we did wrong by you. Let me throw out another thought you got me thinking of about this whole clawback
Well,
and
and let me just inject this and say,
okay.
if when I offer my opinions, I'm just offering my opinions.
No, no, no. I know
I'm
exactly
talking
what you're
to a
doing.
friend, obviously you, like we said, it's
Yep.
kind of just like a walk and talk kind of a conversation. So I want to make sure that if anybody is with an organization that I mentioned, I don't want you to be offended because people say stuff about PRMG. It is what it is. I'm just giving you my
Well, but
top
you're
of
not
mind thoughts.
wrong. How you look at LD, which is a publicly traded company,
Just their
versus how
publicly
you look
traded
at
finances they
PRMG,
reveal.
which
It's
is a private company, versus how you look at XYZ bank that happens to have a mortgage channel. It's all different. And your audit, your due diligence is going to be different. I tell you, the big one, though, is you better know who the hell you are before you start trying to identify who somebody else is in a company. And that's usually where people fail is they don't even know who the heck they are or their own referral partners before they start doing the due diligence on the possibility of making a change. It takes
that's a
time and it
Yeah,
takes work.
that's a very, very good point. And I do like what you said about if you go to an organization and they have a plan to help you build and increase your business, your productivity, that has massive value, even if you're only there for 18, 24, 36 months, because we all know that at the end of the day, the customer's doing business with you, the individual, far more than they are their organization. So
That's
if you have
right.
to unplug from one and plug into another, so be it. Nobody, from my side, you and I have talked about this. Nobody wants to see somebody who is a job hopper, is only someplace 6 months to a year and then they move. That's over the top, right? We've had a few of those folks who seem to be chasing that guarantee. But by and large, if you've had to move a few times simply because the organization you were with rolled up into another organization you didn't care for or went out of business, nobody's going to hold you accountable for that one, nor the
Agreed.
borrowers.
Agreed. And of course, I want to talk about, in a minute, how all of those things, the visibility into history has changed over time. Because when you and I started in this business, you trying to find the public data to see not only the movement of somebody, but their peaks and valleys in their business, who they're doing business with, how those people have changed over time by doing business with these people. We have all of that at our fingertips in data and market analytics now. So there really is no excuse to have not done your homework and understand at least the template as you get to understand the person. Like both of those things are now in place. Before we do that though, I want to go back because you got me thinking about something.
Okay.
Um, let's go back to the clawback, and not just clawback, but making bad decisions that are based on dollars and
Yes.
not based upon something that can lead to long-term
Okay.
business development and wealth.
Okay.
Okay. So when a company acquires another company, generally there's an equation, and that equation includes some sort of, and I'm not going to say it right because I'm not an investment banker, but some sort of fallout, right? We're going to acquire this company, and as long as we can retain 25%, the math works. That means there's 75% that's going to fall apart. But we kind of don't care because we're running a math equation right now. And so the 25%. Okay, so that hold that.
Okay.
On the wholesale side of this business over the years, there's been times where I have consulted with companies, really smart people, really smart companies that will figure out compensation plans and guarantees and 12-month floors for individuals. But the way that they're running that math, and man, these individuals, if they think about it for a second, they will know it's broker acquisition. We are acquiring your brokers. That's what's happening. So be real careful. If you join this company, the company doesn't do right by you or whatever, and you're not careful, there might be a plan there for them to make it a little harder for you to retain these brokers if you then move to another company. Okay, keep going. Now we have access to transaction data on the originator side. It's not bringing your database, it's not doing something illegal or violating a contract that you have with an employer. It's just public data.
Right.
Well, could we not say that possibly, eventually, you got to be careful of the same thing? A company acquires you, but what they also just did was they acquired your transaction detail and your database if
Yeah.
you're not careful.
Well, yes. And that, gosh, man, that just opened up a rabbit trail because of all
Didn't
that,
it?
you start making me think about the GLB Act and everything else. But yes, so make sure that whatever you walk in the door with and acquire while you're there as a production person, that somehow you've got something in there that allows you to extrapolate that upon your departure. Most employment agreements are written by very well practiced attorneys, and they make these agreements, ours included, pretty lopsided because we have to be able to meet the standards of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, Fannie, Freddie, the different state requirements with respect to privacy. In other words, we own the data because the regulators want to hold us, not the individual loan officer per se. They want to hold the company accountable
Right.
for the privacy and security of that data. And so, yes, if you leave an organization, you could have challenges trying to extrapolate that data. And that's the reason why a lot of LOs will run, if they are using the company CRM, they'll have their own CRM, or they'll, and we see this kind of stuff. People plug in a thumb drive and extrapolate information. I mean, with today's technology, it's pretty hard to get away with anything. So it's just better to come to your organization and say, hey, I want to be able to move on for whatever reason. I believe the grass may be greener someplace else. I would up front make sure that you have an exit strategy with that organization, so that way there's no hard feelings at the end if that does in fact occur. It's like, if somebody's in a second marriage or a third marriage, obviously they want to have a premarital settlement agreement so they don't have to fight at the end if that occurs. Well, do the same thing with respect to your business, because as I said, I can't talk out of both sides of my mouth. I can't tell you that you should act as if you're the CEO of your own publicly traded Fortune 100 corporation, but then tell you that you need to be in the data collection business, not just the mortgage business, but tell you that you can't take your data with you. Legally, there's certain information you can't, but man,
Right.
you better have some way to make sure that all that time, energy, and effort that you spent collecting all that information is going to pay you dividends. Otherwise, what are you doing it for?
Well, and quite frankly, I mean, companies like ours, Model Match, we've collected that public data, not the private data, but the public data that is accessible to anybody. It was just hard to get. It was hard to read. It was a big, nasty data dump. And now it's really easy to just pull up an NMLS ID and see all this transaction detail. And as much as you can see it as the originator, so can everybody else if they're starting to invest in this. It's sort of how things have changed, Chris, since you and I got started, where you really had to do some heavy lifting to identify opportunities that could mature over time. Now you can skip 10 steps inside of that funnel because of the access to data and market intelligence that we have.
Well, and this is not just this is going to sound like you and I rehearsed this, but your market insights obviously is the new benchmark for the industry. I mean, it really is. I mean, we've looked at it. Obviously, we're a customer, but we've looked at it recently, taken a deeper dive, and it's pretty badass. I mean, you can do a lot of things. I'm suggesting people, especially after the Setzer Burnett case and the NAR settlement, we're seeing a shift, not huge yet, but you're seeing a shift of more and more agents saying, I think I need to get duly licensed. It's going to make me
Mm.
a better listing agent if I'm able to tell that seller, hey, list with me. And in the event I'm able to take some of that commission that you've agreed to pay a buyer representative, if I know that you're willing to pay 2.5 points, I'm going to take 2 of those points, market your property myself as a listing agent to attract buyers, but I'm going to use that to do a permanent rate buy down, thereby decreasing the payment on this home by $500 a month, which is going to increase the pool of clients, which is going to make sure that I get you a higher offer on your property. That's the type of stuff, obviously, that agents and loan officers better be aware of, because that's the future. When you think about the technology that is occurring, and the tech industry is spending billions of dollars annually to get to the consumer first and
Yep.
give them a one-stop shopping experience. If you don't mirror that in some way on a micro level, you're out of business. You just don't know it.
Yeah, no, and you guys have always done such a good job of being on the forefront of not just implementation of platforms like that, but also just at a minimum paying attention and being educated and being intelligent. I got a couple more questions I want to ask before we break, but one you just made me think of as you were talking about, you know, being aware and being educated on the tools and resources that are available to you, and then how do you pass that down to the originators on the street and support their adoption. Something I've noticed about PRMG, and really since we've known each other, but I've noticed it more in the last couple of years. Is it by design that people like you and Kevin Prenio and Robin Clayton are so visible in this industry? And let me tell you why I asked that question. Most companies have maybe one person that goes to events, they speak, they're on panels, they make themselves available to the industry as a whole. I feel like you guys are a little more aggressive when it comes at. Did that just happen organically, or was that by design?
I would say it was more organically at first. Now it's becoming with more purposeful intent.
Mm-hmm.
And in all fairness, it started with KP doing his, walk and talk conversations
Yeah,
on.
which is great, by the way.
Yeah, he'll study obviously the economic issues. He'll make sure that he's well versed and well rehearsed, and then he'll go on and record a video on
And then
LinkedIn.
he plays Frogger, and we always have to wonder if he's about to get run over by somebody while he's talking.
Exactly. And so that's made him a celebrity. And just like Carl White always says, anybody can create the Oprah effect if they are consistent in their efforts.
Right.
It's just hard work, right? So if you will create video content, it doesn't have, is it best if it's edited and polished? Sure, but it doesn't have to be. You just have to be consistent.
Yeah,
And
good. That's a good thing too, because clearly I'm not edited and polished.
well,
So.
and in fairness to KP, he creates great content, right? I mean, he's very
Yeah,
well spoken.
absolutely.
So it started with KP. When we brought on Robin and we put her in charge of what we call performance marketing, yes, then she's taken upon herself to mirror his actions and put content out there. And now we started this internally called Conversations with Chris, where I'm going around the room talking to different people that work for this organization in a conversational way, basically just interviewing them as if I was considering making a move, or perhaps gushing on them because I believe they've got phenomenal talent. And then we're going to edit that down and push that type of stuff out there on social media platforms as well. I need to do more of it. I just, I get so caught up. Obviously, my dance card is filled up. As you know, my calendar is just goofy because I allow so many people to book me internally for appointments for presentations with their realtor partners or others that
Right.
they're recruiting. That I get pretty darn busy. So I haven't found the time to create as much content as I'd like.
Yeah, but you do. I mean, I still go to an event and I see you on stage with, Casey Crawford and Rosemary David and Bill Dallas. I mean, it's like the freaking Mount Rushmore of the mortgage industry sitting up there. And I I, I there's I don't know, man. Like I'm not sappy or anything, but I love when I see that stuff because I see competitors that are beating each other to death on a daily basis for business, but they're just up there sharing best practices together. And that's a pretty cool thing. Um, and so anyway, I was curious about that. I think it sounds like it's a combination of both. It just sort of happened organically. You also all happen to be very good at it. And that's a trait you sort of either have to have or you need to throw yourself into the fire and learn how to do it.
Right. Yeah. It just, fake it till you make it. But yeah, no, it was, I would say, in fairness to anybody who's listening, it was more organic. It's occurred. Now it's, as I said, with a little more purposeful intent. But just going backwards for a second, the market insights that you make available to all of us does allow us to literally, like a laser beam, go after whoever our targeted audience is at any given point in time, whether it be a real estate professional, a top team member in the real estate industry or the mortgage industry. And that's, yeah, I think back 36 years ago when I started in this business, and the old man on the hill, right? You go, man, what I could have done with this technology
That's
back
right.
then, right? I'd be retired.
Right.
So the hard part is getting people to use it, because we expose people to phenomenal tools. It's got to drive Barry Habib, Dave Savage, you know, Carl White, Todd Duncan, all these folks that have developed, yourself included. You develop these phenomenal tools that if people use them even 50% of what you envision, hell, even 25% of what you envision. What could they accomplish? But people sadly just won't get out of their way. I guess the good news is because I do remind myself of this point. The fact of the matter is that 90% of the people will not do anything to help themselves succeed, which, if you're part of the 10%, is a great thing. It just reminds you that the only competition you have truly is yourself.
I love that. Okay, last question. I I'm going to read something to you, and you tell me what this means to you. I think
Uh-oh.
I know what it means, but I just saw this like today, and I want to read it. Hopefully, you recognize this. Number one objective is to obtain peer recognition for being necessary in their chosen field. I think that statement just tells us a lot about Chris Sorensen.
Yeah, that's gosh, that when I wrote that, uh, I guess when did LinkedIn actually come about? But I wrote that many, many years ago. And it's funny. So, so how much time do I have? If you're going to play therapist, you may end up having to send me an invoice for being my therapist for this call because of that particular question. Um, but I will tell you that this business has saved me and made me emotionally stable. I was very down on myself at a period of time in my early 20s. I was a C student at Whittier High School. I dropped out of a junior college, Fullerton College. I always said I went to Fullerton, and people said, "Oh, Cal State," and I'm like, "Yeah, Titan." I would lie because I was embarrassed that I was going to a Fullerton College instead of Cal State Fullerton, where my friends were going. I then quit my meat cutting job at Vaughn's and moved to St. Thomas, and I became the first mate on the Kontiki there in Charlotte Harbor, and did that for 6 months down in St. Thomas. And this was a beach bum. And then I came back and floundered for another year and a half or so, and then I got my real estate license. And I was very down on myself because here everybody else is succeeding. They've got college degrees, my family, my brother and sister, and my friends. And here I am, just a broke real estate agent, brand new in the business. And yeah, my dad gave me a speech when I went to borrow money behind his back. And you may have heard me say this on stage. It's famous to me, and maybe a famous or infamous to others because of the way my dad spoke. But everybody has that speech that changes their life, I hope, where they go, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." And for me, it was at 24 years of age. And my dad said, "I understand," when he caught me, he said, "I understand you've been borrowing money behind my back from your mother." And I did for like 2 months previously, just a small amount to pay my share of the rent. And he looked at me with a glare in his eye and he said, "Listen here, you little son of a bitch." He said, "Unless and until you're willing to work 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week to build your career," he goes, "you don't deserve jack shit. Now you get the hell out of my home." And with my tail between my legs, I walked out. And at that point, the next morning, I decided to try this thing that he'd been preaching forever called hard work. He always said there's no substitute for hard work. And that's all I had because I didn't have the higher education. I didn't even have the emotional intelligence at that point in my career. But what I did know is somebody, even if it's a matter of taking pity on me, would give me an opportunity to do business with them. And so I just set out to make more calls than anybody else in the industry. And I did. And I became the second highest producer out of 122 agents my first full year in the business, making 122 grand in 1988. And I never looked back. And that's the reason why it was important to me to put the labels, be the president of my own mortgage company, be the mayor of my city, coming here to PRMG and being a senior VP. Paul asked a question to all of the senior leaders at senior management many years ago, and that's where this came from. He said, in just a couple of words, tell me what your goal is for this particular year. And this was maybe 10 years ago. And when he came to me, I said, in 2 words, I said, become necessary. And that was it. I wanted to become necessary to the success of this organization. And everybody on this podcast should become necessary to the people that they know, like, and trust and want to serve, whether that be your spouse, your children, or your client, become necessary. And that is a huge statement if one will take the time to ponder.
If I could pull this mic off, I would drop it. That was great, Chris. All right, don't go anywhere. I'm going to kill the recording here, but before we do that, thanks for coming on, man. This is long overdue. I feel like I talk to you so much that like it's the people I'm closest with that I sometimes don't even invite. You and I got into a little bit of a back and forth a few weeks ago, and you said we should do this on the podcast. And
There you
so
go.
I'm so glad we did. Something tells me this won't be the last time, but thanks for coming on the walk, and I appreciate you, man.
Did it right back at you.